Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. Hope you are doing swell. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you're doing swell. It's good to be here. This is your boy, Robbie C. And I will tell you, for you audio listeners, you don't see, but I'm flying solo today. So Brad is taking some PTO in preparation for, I believe, next week, most likely, as the boys are rolling into Lynchburg. So I will go ahead and tell you there's a pretty real chance that we will not be posting an episode next week, because it's going to be all hands on deck in Lynchburg. We are filming Imposter. Unfortunately, you guys won't be able to see it until later on in the year. It's ready for the off season, but going ahead, gathering, shooting it. It's going to be a fantastic time. I will tell you guys that I like fingers. I've gone back and forth on whether I want to be the imposter or not be the imposter. And talking with Trev about it, he was like, I hope that I'm not the imposter, because then I like feel free and loose to create content and I'm not on like edge the entire time. And I can definitely see a world that is true. So really, really pumped, and we'll see. I will tell you that I'm planning to bring my cowboy hat and make Leroy basically a personality of the show. You know, if it's reality television, you got to go bigger and better. So it's going to be a great time, but we are here, and I pulled some questions aside. I knew there was a possibility that ABB wasn't going to be able to join us today, so I pulled a few extra questions, and then I also wanted to make sure that we're still doing our speed bag through, looking at everything. So wanted to go ahead and check that out. For those of you who are following the Pro Tour world, it's been an exciting week. We were over at Des Moines Challenge, we were in Des Moines for the Discmania Challenge. It used to be the Des Moines Challenge. We were there, and what a wild week. If you were connected to Robbie C, it was a great week. If you were Robbie C, tough out there. Let me tell you. So I excited to recap this. I've got some ideas on what went wrong in my personal performance while I was out there. And so that'll be next Tuesday. I'll have a video dropping explaining sort of my thoughts on that. Basically, really looking into why did my forehand just completely crumble right in front of me. And then looking at drops today that we're recording, but it would have been yesterday when you guys get the chance to hear this episode, is recapping my experience caddying for Cadence, who won out there on the Pro Tour. So really, really fun. It was just an epic weekend. The city of Des Moines, super great. Ty and his team put on a amazing event over at Des Moines Challenge. I've been to several Pro Tour stops, and it's up there for me in terms of just the vibes. I think the crowd responds really well. The park, Pickard, was so cool. I think Pickard to me was like the quintessential, most like probably what you have for a local home course on the Pro Tour. So still difficult, but very much not in the world of like a USDGC or something like that, where it's just so technical. And even New London is hard to describe to people because you probably don't have something like New London at your local course. So very, very unique. But what we've got for the speed bag side of things, I guess I should say, is I have pulled up a random number generator. And so we're going to I'm basically going to use a random number generator to pick Brad's side of things. And we're going to go through two different bags here and see if we can't look at some cool stuff. So we're going to go ahead and go with our first random number generator. And I am going to say number 6. So I'm going to page 197. And I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Hayden Stinnett. We're taking a look at your bag, and yeah, I've taken a lot of notes. It's a little more difficult than normal. So this is Hayden Stinnett's competition bag, and Hayden is Man, you got some good stuff in here. Very, very excited. And so let's see. A lot of discs in the competition bag, but that makes sense because it's the competition bag. So you got Wizards, you got Lynx, you got the Conman Shaman. Yes, sir. That's so cool. I love this Pyro. This Pyro has a fantastic die. Roll Tide to this ESP Buzz. Come on, my man. So it looks like we prefer a lot of Discraft plastic, which is really cool. But overall, looking at the back, oof. I don't know, man. I'm probably giving this a pretty solid grade because I think that the Strive, I see you've, oh no, it is a Strive. I thought it was a Rive. The Strive sitting right in the middle, maybe a little clash between the Strive and the Tide. I was talking with a guy on Team West Side while I was at the event, and we were saying how we feel like the Tide is definitely flippier than the numbers give it, but maybe not like super flippy, probably closer to like a -1, 2. And I think that that's pretty close to the Strive, but maybe it's like a perfect balance of you have a Z Swirls Thrasher up to the Strive, to the Tide, to the Force. So hope that's working for you. It seems like you're really enjoying this year's tour series as well. So that's awesome. Yeah, I think, man, I don't really have a ton of critiques of this bag. I think you've got a pretty well balanced bag. And you have a Wraith up there as well. So if there's any critique that I have, I think it would be in that there seems like there's a lot of clash. If I don't see a ton of modified flight numbers at the top. And so not sure how these 5 distance drivers kind of slot in with one another. And so that would be really my only point of confusion in the bag. But if it's working for you, Hayden, keep it going. Doubles, triples. What's that? I think that's like the TikTok sound or something. Yeah. All right. So our next bag, I am going to say number 1. Let's just go number 1, and we're heading to page 153. And let's see what pulls up for us. Brandon, taking a look at your bag, my man. And so Brandon also got a neat bag here. And excited to kind of dive into this one. A lot less Discraft, a lot more MVP. So we have this guy Brandon Bombs. I didn't even check if Hayden bombs as well, but yeah, for some reason not showing me Hayden's distances on the bottom here. But Brandon, 400 to 450 backhand, 350 to 400 forehand. So got quite a few destroyers in the bag. This guy throws far. Let's go. He's got some Wraiths. Looking good. I like the Star Wraith combo. 2 different Star Wraiths, and I think some people would like look at that and say, interesting. But I know personally I've got 2 Star Wraiths in the bag as well. And don't be afraid, Brandon, to sort of adjust your flight numbers on these discs if you want. I think that's where disc RPM really takes a new height, is when you can adjust the flight numbers on the disc to say, oh yeah, this one is super seasoned and beat in. So therefore, like, I think it actually flies closer to this or this. So really, really fantastic. But we got Firebird, we got a Draco, Thunderbird, a Volt, and an Insanity. So I think initially I'm seeing, okay, we got Craves and Rhythms here as well. So fairways are relatively balanced. That's fantastic. I love to see that. Maybe I'm always curious. The Insanity is, I think it's funny how Innova gets made fun of a lot for the Sidewinder and the Roadrunner and things like that, just being not as understable as advertised. And I think that the Insanity doesn't have a poor advertisement because it's not advertising super flippy numbers. I think people forget about, they see the -2 and they think that it's like a 1 fade on the other side, and they forget about that 1.5 or the 2. And so I'm not ever really sure on an Insanity how much turn it's actually getting. But I mean, if you're throwing 400, 450, I'd imagine you're getting pretty decent turn out of it. So I would be curious why you have a Neutron Rhythm as well as an Insanity. I would think that those would be, and then especially if you tack like tack in a crave right there and cosmic neutron, like to me, that section of the bag feels extremely cluttered and also kind of on its own before you jump over to the Volt. Now, I have heard people say that the Volts that were not the James Conrad Volts were like actually a little on the more straight side. Like they're much more of a -1, 2 instead of maybe the -0.5 that they have advertised. So that could be the case as well. But yeah, heading down to the mid ranges, you've got a Toro for approaches. You've got a deflector for those real meat hook approaches, a pyro. The Matrix, I can only imagine every Matrix that I've thrown is not as overstable as a reactor. And that, I mean, the MVP guys may be coming after my neck with that one. But most of the matrices that I have thrown, yeah, just don't have the beef that a reactor does. And so I feel like the jump between Matrix over to Pyro is pretty substantial. But if you're a bomber, as you are, then I think that the Envy probably helps fill some of that gap, because you can probably throw an Envy a country mile, bro. So PA3s for putting, love that. Champion Rhino. So I would also be curious, you have a Champion Rhino and a Toro with some Calvin Heimberg vibes going on here. So it seems this is one that I wish I could see custom flight numbers, because I just can only imagine, like, you have a Star Wraith at the top that has glow tape on it, and I can only imagine that those would be just a little more separated. So yeah, that is going to wrap up speed bag section for everyone. And then, guys, let's answer some questions, because you guys have asked some awesome ones. So Robert Eichler asked a question, and he said, played a round where I was losing distance and my form didn't feel right. I think I was just tired. How should I play if discs aren't doing what they normally do and not flying as far as I expect? So this is a great one. This is something that I think people have to work with and anticipate quite often. And I believe personally it's one of the hardest parts of form change. For instance, as someone who has been in the middle of form change for quite some time now, disc selection, when I have no idea how the disc is going to fly, can be really tough. I'll use an example from the Creators Challenge. I threw one backhand on hole 1. And when I threw that backhand, the wind, really, we found out later, the wind was kind of like crushing shots and flattening them out and putting them down. So I didn't even throw that terrible of a backhand. It just didn't go that far because I didn't read the wind correctly. So we then move forward several holes later. I've been trying to make the forehand work. It's not working. Life is tough. And I get to hole 9 and I'm like, you know what? Forehand's not working. Let's just abandon ship and let's throw a backhand. But my backhand, I've only thrown one today and it wasn't that great. So let's just go flippy, because I need to get up a hill and I need to turn over. Let's go flippy and just anticipate that I'm not going to throw a backhand well. So I pull out my cheat code disc, which is my Ozone, very flippy disc, 8.5-3.1 for those of you who are not familiar with an Ozone, made by Trash Panda. And it comes out of my hand like an absolute rocket. So I understand this world, Robert, of like, how do I pick a disc when I know, like, I'm not releasing them consistently or they're poor? Because, like, what happens if you get a hold of it in a great manner? So I think what really helps me in this scenario is finding a lot of neutral discs. So if I'm having the same miss over and over again throughout a round, that one's a little easier to fix, because you can make adjustments and say, okay, I'm pulling everything right. It's very akin to, for our golfers out there, playing your slice. The moment that you start like aiming with your slice is the moment that you start hitting the ball really straight. But I think that you should learn in that moment what it's like, what are you doing differently? Try to focus on what you're doing differently. So a lot of neutral discs help here. And then the other question I always ask is, okay, if I throw this really poorly, what is the worst case scenario that's going to happen from it? And if I throw it really well, what is the best case scenario that's going to happen from it? And I want to adjust my line selection and my disc selection based on those two factors and how I'm feeling walking into the shot. So as an example here, if I'm walking up to a hole and I need to throw, I'm thinking of hole 6 at our local course at George Ward. There's OB to the right. So if I'm having a hard time throwing a disc straight, there's a bunch of stuff up to the left that's really not fun to be in. So I'd rather be right, but I don't want to be super right because then I'm OB over the sidewalk. So I want to go something neutral right up the gut is the goal usually. So if I'm having a hard time early releasing, then when I go to pick a disc, then I want to go with something flippy, because if I go with something flippy, it's going to turn over and have a good chance of actually creating some distance. The problem is that if I throw a really good shot with that flippy disc that I'm trying to throw, it's going to turn over the whole time and it's going to go OB. So those are the two extremes. It's either going to be really fantastic, it's going to stand up, it's going to ride and be a beautiful shot, or it's going to turn all the way over. Okay. Which one of those feels more likely? So if I'm afraid of the OB on the right, then I want to throw a flex line, right? I want to throw a overstable disc that's going to fade away from that. But then there's all this mess up on the left that's also an issue. So which one of these, if I throw it really well, I'm going to throw this flex line. It's going to go towards the OB, but it's overstable, so it's going to fade out and it's going to be beautiful. You can sort of see the problem here is, what do I feel like is going to be most often the result? And for instance, in that scenario, most of the time early releases because I'm not committing through the hit point of the shot. So I want to make sure that, okay, if I'm going to throw this overstable disc, I've got to focus on committing and ripping through this shot. And if I do that 9 times out of 10, it's going to be better. So also learning your game and learning what your misses actually do and what they actually are is huge for this success of this really overall shot selection. I hope that helps. Jake from Northeast Ohio said, like I said last question, started playing in 2007. In the beginning, I felt I had very good mental game, and when I play alone, I shoot well below par at most par 3 courses near me. But when I play with friends or other people, I get in my head. This may be an entire show, but what are a few things in your mental bag of tricks that might help me and other people's mental games? So memory of a goldfish, I think, is a classic trick. Like you can't do anything about the shot that you just threw. You can only do something about the shot that you're about to throw. So I think that you like harping on a shot over and over again is really, really bad for the mental. I think that also one of the things that often like we can focus on for the mental and really in the solo transition, like the translation between the two. So I had a lesson with a student yesterday and he comes out, fantastic guy. We're talking about his practice routine. And so his practice routine, he is doing 25 putts a day and for like a social media challenge type deal. So as he's going through, he was like, I just have a really hard time when I get to tournaments actually translating this practice. And I was like, okay, so when you practice and you're not doing the social media challenge, this is about what your practice looks like anyways. He was like, yeah. And in this thing, he's rattling off 6 putts at a time. And then he's moving, picking them up, bringing them back. And we were like, hey, I think that we need to develop a cadence, or we need to develop a routine of sorts so that you have something you can lean on if the putt starts breaking, if it starts going poorly, or that there's just some consistency. Because when you're on the course with other people, you're not going to have the opportunity to say, hey, I missed this putt. I mean, you could, but like, it's weird when you're that friend who's always throwing one more. If you're the one constantly stopping the group to be like, hey, can I throw one more? Check yourself. So you just don't get you get a lot more reps in solo practice. And I don't know if you do this, Jake, but I think several people, when they play solo, I know I definitely do this. When you play solo, because you're by yourself, it's kind of easy. Like, oh, I threw this line poorly. Let me go ahead and throw again. And we can play our score out for our first shots sometimes. But then other times we end up like maybe later on in the round, we start playing the second shot or we play the third shot. So our expectations shift, but not only do our expectations shift, but we're just getting more loose throughout the round because we're often throwing more than just our stock shots when we're by ourselves, and we're throwing more than just one shot like where you're with friends. So part of this could be get to the course and warm up a little bit more. I know that sounds like super goofy, and some people are like, well, you're try harding to get out there and stretch and prepare. But I think if you want to enjoy this sport, don't let people shame you for that. If you want to, in your hobby time, succeed, then sometimes getting to the course early and throwing some shots is paramount for success. I know personally, my first like 2 or 3 forehands are usually not very good every day. And so I love to try to throw 2 or 3 forehands. But the problem is let's say that I ride to the course with friends. Well, it's tough to say, hey, while we're all doing this, can I throw some warm-up shots? Can I get loose? And I turn 33 tomorrow. Yeah, I turn 33 tomorrow, the day this drops. And I feel like the need to warm up more and more is a thing. Really, if there's one thing that I feel like I want to warm up most often, it's my putt. I know the routines of my putt. I know what my putt feels like. And so I want to make sure that I get in that rhythm, because if my first putt of the day is from like a weird stance or a weird something or other, then it just feels like I never find my groove throughout. And I have like the tricks, right, of falling back into my cadence, falling into the routine and trying to find the putting stroke that I've practiced so many times. But it's still very difficult, even personally, as someone who would consider himself a good putter. So yeah, I would say it's adjusting the expectations, because solo rounds just usually have so many extra factors for people to help you think about scoring effectively. So don't be too hard on yourself. Danny Kuhn asked, I've been working on my backhand for about a year now, and recently after playing around, I noticed some lower back pain. Do you have any tips or drills with engaging the hips and not putting strain on the back when throwing? So one of the things that I think is causing a lot of lower back pain is the head getting like swooped into the shot. And so your hips are trying to fire, but then your head is like really driving the shot. And so your hips have fired to a point, but like your hips are locked in and your power's rooted to the ground. And then your head is like doing this motion with your upper body and creating this whip. This is something that when Blitz and I hit another power breakthrough, I had some lower back pain, and he was like, hey, I just want to make sure that we're thinking about keeping like the chest upright. We're thinking about keeping the head upright. So that way we're rotating out and around versus like busting through the door with the head. Because he was like, I just think that you're going to notice the more you get reps in and try to hit this hard, you're going to feel that lower back pain. So keeping the head upright and thinking about rotating like around, keeping your body like a pole. And we can have a little spine tilt. We can bend at the waist a little bit, but we don't want to necessarily just like, where the head goes, the body follows. I can't overstate that enough. I have so many people that come and book lessons or ask me to take a look at their form. And it's just like, hey, I'm struggling to do this or this. And most often, like I struggle to brace is something we get quite often. I'm not generating a lot of power from my legs because I'm struggling to brace. And I say, okay, cool, let's take a look at it. And we take a look at it. Most of the time it's because their head is either spinning forward to look for the shot. So it gets a lot harder for the shoulders to kind of stay back and create that brace, or they end up slamming their head through and the head gets over the front knee and over the front foot. And therefore you're doomed. Levi asks, I have a 2-part question. Number 1, what would you suggest to warm up before a round to prevent injury and make sure you're loose? And then 2, what throwing putter would you suggest adding to my bag? Okay, we'll come back to number 2. Number 1, what would I suggest for warm-ups? I would suggest getting exercise bands. I keep an exercise band in my bag. I love my exercise band. So getting like a medium tension exercise band usually they don't don't buy one individually. Usually they come in sets. And so get a set of exercise bands. Start with, when you're getting used to them, your lighter weight one, and then kind of move up and in for that to a medium weight one. But a Blitz has a great 10-minute warm up on his channel that I think works really well. But for me, I go fives. So I want to throw 5 good putts, good feeling putts. They don't have to go in, but I want to throw 5 good feeling putts. I want to throw 5 forehands, and I want to throw 5 backhands. And of those 5, I want 2 to be putters, a mid, a fairway, and a driver on both sides, just because that allows me to sort of go ramping up so that hopefully before I've actually played, I've thrown up to a full power. I don't want to come out of the car and just rip a massive distance forehand, a massive distance backhand. I want to go putters, and I want that first putter to be just like just feeling the motion. I want the second putter to be me trying to throw the putter but I'm not trying to throw my putter like I throw a driver, if that makes any sense. I want to match the speed of the disc in a degree, and then I am mid fairway. If I'm warming up for a tournament, then I'll usually throw all of my putters and I'll throw all of my mids, and then I'll throw a couple fairways and a distance driver or 2. And then if I'm really warming up for tournaments, then I also like to play 2 or 3 holes is the kind of the dream, which is a funny practice routine that I've always enjoyed. Like, I love to play a couple holes and just play them normal, right? Like, get in the grind of, I'm going to throw a tee shot. I'm going to pick up my bag. I'm going to walk down there. I'm going to line up a putt. I'm going to hopefully hit a putt, or I'm going to throw an approach, whatever it may be, whatever's required. And so getting my body used to being in performance mode is probably the best way to describe that. But when you play like a pro tour, there aren't just holes around. So if you ever plan on going pro, that's the tough part. And several courses, like if you're playing A tiers and things with tee times, most of the time the course is full. So if you're doing this routine, then you've got to like go to a different course in order to do that, and that can be hard. So find a routine that you can do. I would say set up multiple routines, but those are some of mine. And then what throwing putter would you suggest I add to my bag? I have a Remix Eldritch, an Envy and Neutron, an Envy and Proton, and a soft zone. Remix Eldritch, an Envy and Neutron, an Envy and Proton, and a soft zone. So Neutron is premium, Proton is premium, and a soft zone. So I would get a flippy putter. I would get something that has some turn to it. If you got a zone, I would look at a Fierce. I think that a base plastic pure could do a lot of good for you. A putter that's just kind of naturally flippy could be really fun. Or I always suggest people check out sort of the Polecat, the Lid Gang. So they just have something like nice and easy to throw in. You can go to a Berg if you want to go to a Berg, but something in that floaty sort of lid frisbee approach type game can be really, really fun. I think if people would mess around with those a lot more, you would be shocked. I was actually talking with Avery Jenkins at the Discmania Challenge about this, and I asked him, so the Spore, because he was talking about he loves like to play catch and things like that. And I said, so the Spore, is it too gimmicky of a disc for you to trust during a round? He said, yeah, absolutely. But there are guys who have just built it into their games, and he just never has the trust. He's too old school, has the trust to lean into that. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, as someone who has put in the time to it, it is a fantastic tool. Fantastic tool. So Elvin asks, why don't course designers on the Pro Tour make courses that even par is over 1,000 rated and make 600-foot par threes and par fours and extreme dog legs and par fives that are over 1,000 feet through the woods? I'd really enjoy seeing the Pro Tour struggle more instead of birdie or die style. So Elvin, I think that there are actually a ton of courses that are a lot closer to this. So let's see. I'm going to go to PDGA. Let's go. I'm going to try to see how I get to a list of Pro Tour events really fast on the PDGA's website. So let's do it this way. I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on Ezra. Okay, I'm on Ezra's page. So let's think about a couple of these. Supreme Flight Open is more in the woods. Supreme Flight Open, if you are at Olympus, which is the first course they played, it is a par 65. So we want to go ahead and show set round ratings and a par 65. So if you shot even par, Evan Smith, round one, shot even par at Olympus, and it was a 10-14. Let's see if that carried to day two. 65 was a 10-14, and day three looks like people kind of torched day three. Nope, it's 10-14. Yeah, so Olympus, check. That one, shooting par. Shooting par is a 10-14, and it was 6 strokes. So if you shot, I guess that's the question: is it over? Is even par over 1,000 rated? So yeah, that one was a couple strokes over. I think you could have shot 2 or 3 over, and probably still ended up. Now Waco is going to be Waco is going to be a little bit different. Beast is an older course, so it's a par 64. Par 64. What did you have to shoot 1,000? 65 was 986. Let's see. Someone shot a 64. There's too many people in the field not to shoot a 64. What are we doing? There it is. 64 was 993. Even par was 993. So if you shot a 63, 62 was 1,007. 63 was 1,000. So 1 under par at the Beast. I think that makes sense. 1 under par. And then let's see, Music City. Music City isn't in the woods, a much more open course, and par was 67. Okay, so Matty O shot a even par day one. It was 10-17. So I think that they definitely exist out there, and I don't think that they have to have 600-foot par threes and things like that. I think that part of what makes these courses seem so birdie or die on the Pro Tour is that I don't think people understand how good the pros actually are. Like some of these holes that they were making look just like insanely routine are not actually insanely routine. So let's think. If you go back to, I'm trying to think of some holes that you get there and it's like, wow, it's way harder than it looks. Okay, great example. Des Moines Challenge or Discmania Challenge that just happened this past weekend. Hole 7 of the Discmania Challenge is this uphill for MPO. It's this uphill to an island green. It's like 360, I think, is what it says. And to get there, I think to get on the island, you probably need 430, 440 feet of power. But I think people look at the fact that lots of MPO players birdied it and were hitting the island, and they're like, oh, well, it's only 360. I have a 360-foot hole at my local course, and if I can birdie that, then I can play on the Pro Tour. And it's just like, Can you? So you got to remember, elevation doesn't play well on camera. It doesn't translate to camera very well at all. And so lots of times some of these holes are actually way more extreme one way or the other than we're giving them credit for, which makes them a lot harder. So I think adding OB can be a way to add in some difficulty. Eldon, I think about my local course where I know that if you shoot even par, it's not on the Pro Tour. And if you shoot even par, it's 1,000 rated. And it's a wooded course that is relatively short. I would be terrified to bring a full Pro Tour field to my local course. It's called Inverness, because I think that they would shred it. I think they would obliterate that course. There is definitely stretches in the middle where I think they're just shooting silly hot. And there are some hard holes. I think there are some hard holes that people would struggle with. But I truly, I think that for lots and lots of people, it is a reality that the Pro Tour is significantly better than people give them credit for. And yeah, like hole 18 tee shot was intimidating. I mean, when we're walking up with Sullivan, I caddy for Sully, and day one, they were talking about hardest hole on the course, and hole 18 was playing as one of the hardest holes on the course at the time, and it was only playing a half stroke above par. Like, on average, only a half stroke above par. That may have changed. That may have been different by the end of the day, but only playing a half stroke above par. And I was like, wow, that's crazy that this is playing as one of the more difficult holes on the course, and it's only playing a half stroke above par. And two different people on the card were like, yeah, Pro Tour's good. Like, it's just even these guys, the guys who were like struggling near the middle of the Pro Tour, if they showed up to your local course, would probably torch it. They'd probably crush it. So everyone who has like a touring pro that is local to them understands this. Even if your local pro, like I feel bad that this is the name I'm going to, but like Raven Newsom is popping into my mind because I know one of the moderators in my community, Raven Newsom, from his area. And Raven Newsom has, I don't believe, ever won a pro tour, but has definitely come in contention at several pro tours. But not a name that you're thinking every week when I see Raven Newsom's name, I just expect him to be popping off. But I also know that if Raven Newsom shows up to my locals, he's probably going to win because he's just that good. So it's wild. Wild how good these guys are. Next up is Bob. Bob said, if I lose a disc that's very beat in and I don't have others I'm working on in the bag, should I use a different mold until I can beat another one in, or should I just go with another disc of the mold I lost to beat in quicker? Okay. So you lost a very beat in disc that was flying different than the traditional mold. I think that the answer is, when do you need the disc to be what it was again? If you've got a tournament and you lost a disc and there's a round 2 coming up and you need that disc again, then you need to go with a different mold. However, if that's not the case, then yeah, like absolutely feel free, if you really love that mold, to start seasoning in another one, start working in another one. I know Precious Child is near the end of its life cycle, and I am working on another pig to replace Precious Child. But when Precious Child leaves the bag, I'm going to be in a somewhat difficult spot for a little while because Precious Child does a very specific thing. So I have in my bag, I have another disc that's not in my bag. I have it in my backups bag that's ready to go in case Precious Child disappears. I have a disc that's very similar. Like for my very seasoned discs, I have replacements ready to go. For instance, I had a very beat-in Raider in my bag. And that beat-in Raider, I had a Strive as a backup because I didn't have any other Raiders that were as beat-in as that one, that turned as much as that one. So I just jumped to an entirely different mold so that if I'm in a tournament and I lose that, great. But I also have other Raiders that I'm working on to try to season into that point. And it sounds like you don't have the other molds that you're working on to season into that mold or season into that point, and it's okay to like sort of start over. You just sort of have to adjust your game plan. I always struggle, and I mentioned earlier, I was talking to a Westside guy about the Tide, but when I was talking to him, I had mentioned I think it was the Tide that we were talking about, and I had mentioned like, hey, yeah, is there a world that it would make your bag? I know we both think it's a little flippier than the numbers say it is. And he said, yeah, I could see that, but I like to just start with something more stable and season it in because it just gives it a longer time in the bag. So, I mean, if it's good, keep it in the bag, right? And so he wants to have that opportunity to really see it go through a full life cycle. And if it starts flippy or it starts on that understable side, like you wanted out of the seasoned one, Well, eventually that disc is going to season itself as well. And if you were leaning on that disc, when a disc seasons in, it holds that flavor for a very long time versus the transitional part of it. If it starts there, you got to understand it's also going to change, right? And so then it's going to get really, really flippy, which could be a problem. So I think about like Sullivan Tipton has a soul in his bag, and he's probably never going to need another soul in his bag unless he just straight up loses that one, because he's not throwing it very often. He's maybe throwing it once a tournament, twice a tournament. And because of that, it's just not seeing a lot of action. So it's not going to get silly understable. So he doesn't really need to have another mold in that slot, because it's just working. All right. Next up is Matt G. Matt G. I live in San Antonio. Oh, okay. This was one that I need to copy back. Hold on one second, everybody. Bang. We'll go ahead, because Matt G had asked for some disc suggestions, and he has a link in this question. So in San Antonio, playing for just over a year, only ever playing in Texas at lower elevation. He's heading to Boulder, Colorado for the next month for 2 weeks to work, and looking for recommendations on what discs to take. He can reasonably fit 3 to 5 discs plus his putter. He throws 250 to 270 reliably on backhand, but can push 300 if the nose angle's right. I do tend to struggle a bit on nose angle. Not sure if that matters more or less in higher elevation. Forehand, he throws 300 to 325. Doesn't have as much experience on forehand, and his biggest struggle is release angle. Okay. So what 3 to 5 discs should he bring? He throws 250 to 275. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bag. What we're going to know is that things that are flippy are going to be less flippy while we're there. Another thing to keep in mind while you're there in Denver or in Boulder is that like elevation just between cities in Colorado can be a massive difference, which also affects the disc. So I think if you're fitting 3 to 5 discs plus your putter, then I'm going to end up taking that lobster for sure. I'm going to take a rhythm. Said it's slowly replacing his crave. Yeah, I think I'm going the rhythm over the crave, because I think it's just going to have a little less turn than you're anticipating. And let's go Fission Trail. That one's fun. And I think it's going to fly really excellently. Okay, that's 3. And then let's throw in one of the hexes. It can be either. If you have a really beat in one, it's always fun, I think, to take it to elevation just to watch how it flies different. So you got a hex, you got a lobster, you have a rhythm, you have a Fission Trail, and then I would take a zone. There you go. There's 3 to 5. Perfect. I like having that forehand approach disc. I like having that approach disc in general, just because, yes, things are going to be more overstable, but like I didn't notice a ton of difference between my already overstable stuff. It was more so the seasoned things that were very interesting. So Andrew C., I generally play a lot of wooded courses in the North Carolina area, and I can throw 350 in a field, but I can only throw 250 max in the woods. I was wondering if there were any tips or tricks with disc selection or something else to help me commit to my shots more on those courses. So you nailed it. Shot commitment is probably the biggest thing holding you back when it comes to the woods, because in an open field, I can rip. This is why when we talk about tech disc, I always tell people that your tech disc numbers are probably 5 to 6 mile an hour faster than what you're actually hitting while you're on the course. So that's why, for instance, if I want to be throwing 400 consistently, I feel like I need to be hitting 65 consistently in the tech disc, 65, 66. So that way I can hit 60 consistently while I'm out on the course, because it's just feeling that comfort of ripping out onto an open field with reckless abandon is very different than ripping something down a fairway in the woods. So I think that's going to help. Also, what's your consistent? I would ask, what is your consistent power angle that you feel like you're getting those 350 shots? Because to lose 100+ feet in the woods is definitely a trust or a commitment issue. So I would say, Andrew, when you're throwing these big shots out in the field, are you getting a lot of turn out of them? Are you throwing these big Hyzer flips? Are you going massive flex lines? Where are you going? Because you want to pick those and that lean into that angle. So if I know that Hyzer is where I feel the most comfortable and feel like I can yam the most power, then when I get in the woods, I love to throw a flippy disc on Hyzer in the woods. And I like tell myself I can't be too upset if it stands all the way up and turns, because that's just a reality of the situation. So I'm going to want to jam a disc on Hyzer and watch it go. And the more that I play, the more comfortable I'm getting throwing less like straight Hyzer and pulling it a little more flat, putting a little more angle on it, things like that. But find your comfort angle and lean into that, and then make disc selections based off of that. I think about Big Germ posting a story yesterday about how his most comfortable woods dicing shot is a flip up forehand. He loves to cut through the woods on a flip up forehand. Awesome. So if he has long wooded holes, he's going to put a more understable driver in his bag so that he can flip it up on that forehand. All right, we're going to go one more because I think you guys have heard a lot of Robbie C today. So I don't want to overwhelm you. And yeah, we'll make it a little shorter episode because it's a podcast. But I hope it's been helpful. Last question coming from Wyatt Wood. Currently throw on average my full flex shots 350 and my furthest is 380. However, my furthest throwing disc is a Rhythm 7.5 -2.1. Any disc with higher speed typically stable out on me, except the Gorgon, but that goes shorter than my Rhythm. Is this a disc problem or a form problem? It's definitely a form problem. And that's good news, Wyatt. So the good news is if you're ripping this Rhythm on a flex shot at 350, 380, first off, that's a crush. Anytime we're getting 7 speed to 350 plus, that's a crush. So congratulations, you throw far. And that's not even sarcasm. Like that's legit. Anytime you throw over 300 feet, I tell people, if you can throw 350, especially, you throw far. For average disc golfers, if you can throw over 350, you throw far. Now, if you cannot get faster discs farther than that, it's a nose angle issue. The faster the disc, the more that nose or that edge of the disc is designed to cut through the wind. It's also, when thrown incorrectly, going to be even more of a parachute holding back the distance of the disc. So that's 100% what's happening, is you're going to throw these faster discs and the nose angles off. So I would find a local shop that has a tech disc, a friend that has a tech disc, whatever it may be, and focus on launch angle first and then nose angle. And I promise you, if you fix that launch angle, because right now your disc may be going up, but if they're going up, they're coming off of a air bounce. For instance, if you're getting like full flex shots, if you're flexing a Rhythm 380 feet, it's nose up the entire time. Now, if you're telling me that the Rhythm's like going from Hyzer all the way up, turning, and then coming back, if that's the full flight, I would not consider that like a flex shot. I consider like that a full flight. That's different. But yeah, for most people, if you can't throw faster discs, it's a nose angle issue. And it's just, the faster the angle, the more it exposes it, things like that. So yeah, that would be my my look, my thought, my advice. Hopefully this was helpful, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in. We had to pivot last minute, so I sadly don't have a like what's new in the warehouse section for you guys. But I know that hopefully the Sky Bros stamps from Dismayed Challenge should be there soon. It's a very fun stamp on a P2X. Very, very cool. They sort of throw an homage to Simon Lazat's Sky God stamp, but it's Hunter and Trevor. Very, very, very fun. I loved getting to see it in person. I know that, let's see, Project Skybound has been teased. I believe that is dropping on July 18th. So we are in July. We're only we're 2 weeks away from you guys finding out what Project Skybound's all about. So that's exciting. New things that are coming that I know of. I believe what's it called? Turbulences. If you pre-ordered a Turbulence, I would imagine those are getting shipped this week. If you did not pre-order a Turbulence and they're not all sold out, probably dropping today would be my guess. So Turbulence is a Berg top, that thumb track top on an overstable fairway driver. Very, very interesting. Hoping that some make it through the weekend so that I can check one out when I get up there for Imposters. So that is going to wrap it up for today. I hope you guys have a fantastic one. And remember, as always, ladies and gentlemen, if it's good, keep it in the bag. We'll see you guys in the next one.